Gordon Ryan's back, and so is the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. This episode is coming hot on the heels of the news that Gordon Ryan has announced a warm-up match, essentially, before the ADCC World Championship. So, Calum, what do we know about Gordon's comeback match?
Yeah, so obviously Gordon has been absent from competition given his health issues with his gut and his stomach. We recently talked about a post he put on Instagram about him trying to get double gold at this upcoming ADCC. So we thought his first time returning to competition would be at ADCC, and that would have been almost a year since his last match. His last match was in October. So we've recently found out that he will be doing a bit of a tune-up match to hit the next Who's Number One.
Yes, he has Josh Saunders. What do you know about Josh?
So, for guys that have watched the show before, we've done an interview with our friend Mark McQueen. I almost kind of categorise this guy as the Australian Mark McQueen. So, the similarities they've got, both big athletic guys that have came from being a very high level in another sport. Mark from powerlifting, Josh from professional rugby, I believe. So, very big, strong, athletic guy. I think he got his brown belt within like a few years, and he's kind of tried to make some courses to sell some stuff off of that. So obviously he's got to a very high level from not doing any jiu-jitsu, coming from another high-level athletic background. Big, strong, athletic guy, good wrestling, good passing. He's won trials a couple of times now. I think he got put out the first round of the last ADCC against Felipe Pena, but he gave him some good looks, some good issues on the feet. So big, strong, athletic guy, good wrestling, good passing. That's kind of what I know about him.
Okay, so what are you expecting from Gordon in the match?
To be fair, like, it's not the kind of match that makes you think, like, oh, is this going to be the guy to dethrone Gordon? But in all fairness, I think a lot of his Who's Number One matches have also been like that. So I kind of just expect a bit of a lesson from Gordon, which is what we've been getting from a lot of his recent Who's Number One matches. I don't know if he's going to use this to make a statement going into ADCC. I don't know if he's going to use this to try and sell some instructional material he's got coming out, but I expect this to be something that will be good to watch from a studying perspective. We'll get to see some of Gordon's new tech, stuff he's working on, but I don't really see this being a very competitive match or compelling from the fact of who's going to win this match. I think from most people's perspectives, it's quite obvious who's going to win. Also, we'll get to see what kind of condition Gordon's in, because obviously he's not been competing because of his health issues. We've seen him drop some weight. We'll get to see what he's looking like physically, what kind of condition he's coming into. So it'll be interesting from that perspective to see where he's at coming into ADCC. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
So last match was against Patrick Gaudio.
Yeah.
In October 23.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll see the same sort of style employed in this match by Gordon? A lot of heavy top game and try to wear out his opponent over time. I would think that Gordon would be looking for a good amount of mat time in this match. Not to say that he can go out and submit someone very, very quickly. I'm sure Josh will be a tough guy to get to the mat, but I think Gordon will play for time here to get in good shape for the ADCC.
Yeah, I think so. And we've seen that from him in a lot of matches. I think that's why he likes these kind of longer Who's Number One matches around 30 minutes. He's complements his style very well.
Just on that, a bit of uncertainty over the time on it for the match. So I did see some people online inquiring as to how long this would be. And last I saw, someone had said it was advertised for 15 minutes. Now, it might not be, and that might change. And often Gordon's matches are at a different time limit to other matches on the show. So I think that the exact time of the match is to be confirmed as far as I'm aware.
Interesting as well, because I thought the talks were that Flo had kind of lost out on having Gordon as their athlete, and he'd signed with the Fight Pass Invitational as well. So that's interesting as well, because I thought that he was kind of done with the Who's Number One scene. He was signed exclusively to FBI, but apparently not. So.
Well, what I'll say on all that, just if we can go off and a little aside, is I do find in grappling difficult. is difficult to find out this kind of information, right? And I just want to bring in to the discussion here what happened with Gordon on the ADCC official website. So we assumed Gordon was doing the over 99 kilogram division in addition to the super fight against Yuri Simoes, because Gordon has said he's going for 2 golds. Then all of a sudden, I think last week, it appeared on the website that there was a second super fight happening. It was to be Gordon Ryan against Felipe Pena, his career rival, essentially. And so there was a lot of talk about that. Oh, Gordon's now facing Felipe. And then all of a sudden, the website showed both Gordon and Felipe were no longer in a super fight together, but they're in the over 99 division, in addition to Gordon doing the super fight against Yuri. Now, there's been nothing said about it, right?
Gordon's officially on the list for over 99.
Gordon, well, last time I looked at the ADCC official website, Gordon was on the list for over 99. Now, as far as I'm aware, it's never been said by Gordon or Mo or any other organizer that Gordon is in the over 99 division, nor was anything said when Gordon was all of a sudden supposedly facing Felipe and then no. So very confusing. And then, like you're saying with the contract status, in other professional sports, we know the contract status of every athlete, right? In Jiu Jitsu, it gets a bit murky. So all I'm saying is the murkiness around the contract status, the murkiness around the super fight situation, the murkiness around the weight class, it doesn't do us any favors. And I think people in positions of authority should be coming out and saying this is exactly what is happening and why. Gordon is signed to us for X amount of matches and until that amount of time. Within that, does he have scope for doing other things? Well, let us know what to expect. Right now, they're wondering, what does this mean Gordon's back in there? What's Gordon doing? So give it a hand, if you can, please.
Yep.
Keep us in the loop. Now, back to the match. So would you expect to see a good amount of time in this match spent on the feet?
That's interesting. So Gordon has just launched his own YouTube channel. First couple of videos I wasn't a fan of. He was kind of just moaning about his stomach issues in the first one. And then I think the second one, which I didn't watch, he was talking about his cars. But the third one, he was actually showing some training footage, which I did enjoy, like watching Gordon train.
Yeah, so that's what you're in for. We're in for Gordon training, not stomach issues, not cars. Let us just see some training.
Yeah, so in that rolling footage from Gordon, he was predominantly spending his time in that role on the feet. So maybe that's something he's working on and he wants to show that off in the match. But from another perspective, I think the standing position is one of Josh's strong points. He's also a very big athletic guy. So maybe Gordon would rather just kind of cool, get to his butterfly guard, get an easy sweep, and then just give him hell on top. Or maybe we're going to see him try to wrestle against Josh. That is yet to be seen. But I think 50-50 either way, to be honest. Like, he's been working on his wrestling, so we might see that, or he might look at Josh being a big athletic guy that's good at wrestling and be like, nah, I don't really want to have to deal with that in my first match coming back.
Right now, the match itself, I think Gordon heavily favoured to win. I think that's fair to say. I think the interest comes from how is Gordon going to play it and what shape is Gordon in. Now, we've seen some training footage of Gordon and he looks to be in good shape, so that's encouraging. So then, like, really, the reason I want to watch it is to see how Gordon goes about the task. And I think, like, usually that's why I'm attracted to watching Gordon Ryan matches. Like, I don't really care for the Gordon Ryan promotion of the event. Doesn't really excite me the way he goes about promoting it, but actually getting a chance to see him in action is what makes me want to tune in. So I am really keen to see how he goes about his business here. I think he'll try and play a good amount of time on the feet, working the wrestling game that's evolving, and I think he will want to spend a good amount of time on top on the mat as well. And I think finish-wise, they'll be looking for something like a smother from Mike.
Yeah, I think Gordon's stand-up is a bit underrated. I think people kind of label that as being like the weakness of his game. And to be honest, that might be the case just because all the rest of his game is so good. But last time I can think of him getting beat a little bit on the feet was maybe his match with Hulk, but in the under 99. Hulk got Francis back and got some good positions on him, but in that same ADCC in his finals against Draxler, he hit a nice knee tap, and then that was the end of the match. And then against Gaudio, he got a single leg. So when we do see him wrestle, he is pretty dominant from there. Same with 88 kilos guillotine man Pedro Murillo. Name didn't come to me there. So yeah, again, with a really nice foot sweep to get the takedown off of that. So when we do see Gordon wrestle, he does look really good. And then if he's been working on that, especially, then we might see some of that. So
can we talk about the evolution of New Wave and the evolution of their wrestling?
Yes.
Please?
Yep.
Okay. So New Wave has formed out of what was the Danaher Death Squad, and then we had the split, and there's B Team and New Wave. And I think it's really interesting to look at what New Wave has become. So really, the DDS rose to prominence, playing a totally different game with a different set of guys. So I think when the DDS first sort of rose to prominence, it was on the EBI shows, and they were using a leg lock heavy game.
Yeah, and there were two guys at the forefront were Eddie Cummins and Gary Tonin, who were both smaller guys, and then Gordon was kind of coming into it a little bit after that, but even at the time he was a little smaller when he first did it as well.
Yeah, so, and I think they played the rule set and they played the style of grappling at that time where grappling was very, very well. And I think it's really interesting to see New Wave right now because it's a totally different set of guys. So very big, athletic, powerful guys. So you've got Gordon, you've got Big Dan, you've got Luke Griffith, Bedoni.
Meregali
is a big guy. Meregali's come in. And so now sort of the style in that gym is totally different to the style that we had with DDS in the EBI deals. And it's not to say those skills are still with Gordon. He just goes about his business in a very different way. And I think what's interesting is those guys have always kind of been at the cutting edge where Jiu-Jitsu is going. So at the time, leg locks were not as evolved as they are now, and certainly weren't as evolved in general as to where those guys were at the time. And I think Eddie Cummins, our favourite Sigma grappler, takes a huge amount of credit for that. There'll be more Eddie Cummins chat to come in some future pods. And so if you like the Wolverine, stay tuned. We're not going to get to chat with him, unfortunately, because
where he is.
That's part of his charm. Then he just disappears and then pops back. But we'll be giving some love to Eddie Cummins in the future. Anyway, the way New Wave play now is sort of at the cutting edge of the wrestling game for submission grappling. So John Danaher, the coach, has talked about this, how there was a bit of a disconnect in the way people went about their business on the feet for a submission grappling rule set versus what was probably optimal for it. And I think the way New Wave play on the feet is the way that the stand-up for submission grappling is going to be for a long period of time now. So I think we'll see Gordon trying to use some of that. I want to really zero in on what he's doing. What are some of your observations, Calum, of the way those guys play on the feet?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I think the way we see them in competition and even in training, the way they wrestle, it seems very much molded towards matches that are a longer time frame. So they stand pretty tall. When you watch Olympic or collegiate wrestling, freestyle anywhere where they attack the legs, they're very much low in their stance, where it's just difficult to kind of maintain that posture for the length of some of the matches that they do, 10, 15 plus minutes. And as well, they very much prioritize getting called. They don't really do it as like uncontrolled as some other gyms where they're more just like slapping and clubbing the head. They do it a bit more like technically, and they'll like grab the wrist and they'll get a collar tie and then they'll start stepping back a lot and tugging on the head. And that in and of itself is mostly just to fatigue people. Like we saw Meregali do this to Kainen, and then it gets to a certain point in the match where they start slipping up or making mistakes or getting very tired, and you can more have your way with them later in the match. So I think it's more geared towards longer time frames from what I can see. I don't think maybe like a 5-minute or a 6-minute match would be long enough to really tire someone out from that perspective. And I think as well, like you mentioned, geared towards slightly bigger guys. Like I think if you're trying to do that against someone super fast that can like shoot a little sweep signal on you, you're standing up all tall like this, trying to wear the guy out, you might get taken down before you really know it. So I think it lends itself, 1, to longer time frame matches, and then 2, towards like a bigger kind of guy style of wrestling. That's my observations on the way that they seem to do things.
I think their wrestling matches their passing style.
Yeah, it's similar, philosophy. Gordon's just kind of like leaning on people, not necessarily look at the pass straight off the bat, but more just doing it in a way that tires the guy out, and then it gets to the point where he can pretty much have his way with it because they're so tired out.
Now, I think that's amazing for those guys. The question is, if John Danaher was coaching, let's just say, Melpi Galvaro's squad, would it be the same red blend or would it be different? And I think it would be different. And I think what John is very, very good at is getting a group of athletes together, working out their skill sets, working out what rule set they're playing to, molding it all together, and then you get the style out of that. So I think this style of wrestling that we're seeing from the new wave guys like really suits all of them. I just want to bring in that John, I think I'll be paraphrasing here, but I think I've got the gist of what was being said. But at the last ADCC, Gary Tonin went out early. Yeah. And Gary's now a completely different morphology to the vast majority of people at the senior status in the Danaher squad. And I think John said really like the camp didn't really
care towards him.
Yeah. So I think like one thing to look at is while this style can give us lessons to learn, the way Gordon played, like it should work across the board. We also have to take into consideration like the guys that are playing it, their size, their stature, their athleticism, etc.
I definitely think regardless of what weight you are, there's stuff you can take. Like I used to have the kind of view looking at some of the things Gordon did, especially with his passing and being like a bit on the lighter side. They'd be like, oh, that's like big man passing. I'll more stick to watching guys my size for their passing. I've studied Gordon's pass a lot. Not everything works amazing for me, but the stuff that I've taken from being a bit more open-minded towards it has been absolutely massive for my doing. So it would be the same with the rest. And I presume there's definitely stuff you can take, but I wouldn't expect being like a 66-kilo guy rolling with some of the guys in your gym, you're going to be able to do all the things that they're doing.
I think definitely like I'll be looking to learn from it and then adapt it to my body type.
Yeah.
But going to be fascinating to see how Gordon goes about his business, and always great to see him compete because right now he is the best grappler in no-gi. We can get into discussions in the future about whether he's the GOAT, and we can get into discussions in the future as to who's the best regardless of clothing choice. But right now, in any no-gi competition, Gordon's top dog. So it'd be great to see him compete, and that's going to keep the talk going, leading into the ADCC and leading into CJI. So probably like in my time of watching grappling, this is the most exciting time in terms of competition.
Drama,
yeah. So while we're here, just want to flag up some developments that have happened since our last podcast regarding the Craig Jones Invitational Tournament and the ADCC. And we have seen CJI's roster increase with some good additions. So, Calum, who are you most excited to see join the ranks of the CJI?
I think it is interesting that we've got the newest additions to the under 80 kilo division have been from 88 kilo ADCC athletes. So it was primarily getting filled up by 7 guys who are maybe happy not to have to cut as much weight, go to 8 kilos, and that's like a nice division for them. When we saw William Taft sign up as over 80, that kind of surprised me because he has moved up from 77 to 88. And granted, his brother is in the under 80 kilo division, so maybe he wants to save that for his brother Andrew. But I thought for $1 million being on the line, he would have been happy to cut back down to 80. But now we've seen that happen from 3 athletes. That is Ona Flanagan, Matthias Denise, and Lucas Barbosa. All guys that have made it to the semi-finals of ADCC, one of them champion, one of them silver, and then one of them getting to the semi-finals. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see, one, what those guys are going to be like at that weight. Is it going to be the case that they're going to bully some of the smaller guys like Nicky Ryan and Joseph Chen just being bigger, coming from a bigger weight class? Or is it going to be the case that it's going to be so much of a cut, they're not going to really look the same? So it's going to be interesting to see that kind of match up as far as how the weight cut is going to go for those guys.
Or is it, and we get to see Alpha Andrew Tackett beat up on some big people, I guess, like he did to Big Dan.
Yeah.
So, one more in that bracket, Renato Canuto.
Yeah, he's again come from 77, so it won't be too much of a cut for him, but he's always very exciting to watch. I think him versus Andrew would be a really good match to watch.
Yeah, so it's an interesting bracket that's evolving here because, like you said, there's like a kind of distinction in size and all action versus more sort of like wrestle heavy, slower game. So to see how that pans out, I think that 80 limit's really interesting. It definitely takes out the 66 guys at the ADCC. We've seen none of them switch.
The only division so far that is completely filled up. So all the other divisions kind of depending on the division. Some of them are like 15. I think 7 at the moment is like 15, so they only need to buy one more guy. But some of the ones a bit further north, like I think under or over 99 was only like at 11, so they've got a fair few invites to get that division full again. But yeah, 66, as we kind of speculated, no guys as of yet moving over to CGI. They don't fancy fighting Hulk cutting down from 88 kilos, which is fair enough. So that division for ADCC seems pretty locked in and unaffected. So I think when you're judging guys winning ADCC, the guy wins 66. I don't think it's going to be affected like the prestige of winning that division at all.
And also over 99. Because if Gordon Ryan's in the division, if Gordon wins, then that's what's expected. So no asterisks.
And Gordon Ryan is probably more of an achievement than
exactly.
It is.
So if anyone wins over 98 or under over 99 or under 6, I agree.
Yeah.
I'd also say with Merigali in under 99, I have him as top dog in that division as well. So I think like if you're beating him en route to the title, I don't think anyone's should be questioning that achievement. When we get into like the middleweights, it's really interesting to see like now the split, shall we say, and how strong each respective division is going to be. I would say on the Craig Jones competition, they've got work to do to fill up the brackets though.
Yeah.
I think I've got 7 names written down at present for under 80 and 8 written down for...
So about halfway to brace.
Yeah.
The kind of talk is that they've got a bunch of interest and they've got a bunch of guys and they're maybe leaking them out one by one. Craig's got a little series on his YouTube, or it might be on the B Team's YouTube. It's like the Road to CJI, and he's on episode 2. And towards the end of that episode, he was on the phone to one of his friends, and his friend had a very big reaction to whatever name he said that was going to blurt it out. So we didn't hear it, but whatever name that was, his friend had a very ecstatic reaction. So there's maybe another really big name he's going to get released, or maybe it's a bit of a hype job. So we're going to see for that. But I think they'll get them filled out with that.
Oh, they'll fill them out.
Yeah.
I would say as well, like, if there's 8 really well-known grapplers, and just say there's 8 that are not quite at that level, I mean, they're your first round matches. So at least we get to see, like, the 8 guys that progress do well, and hopefully there's lots of jiu-jitsu. So, and then you'll get into the nitty-gritty of, like, big names facing off against each other. So even if it's, like, sort of weakened them in the first round, I don't think it'll be, like, too much of a problem.
Yeah, if he struggles to fill it out with maybe some of the guys that are already at 88, like I've heard some interesting talks. I think I saw Bodenko discuss on a podcast that he'd potentially be happy to jump in for the chance of getting $1 million. So obviously we've already seen an interesting one with Oracle. So yeah, I think some of these guys would definitely be pretty interested to see them jump in and maybe kind of spice things up from what we usually expect from ADCC.
And then, well, it kind of goes back to kind of like how ADCC was way back in the day.
Yeah.
You get a lot of interesting people show up.
Yeah, it was like the original UFC, but for grappling. Like the original UFC was like, karate versus sumo. And then back in the day, ADCC was kind of like wrestler versus Jiu Jitsu or whatever grappling style.
Yeah. So over AD right now, we had already, I believe, at the time of recording the last pod, Nicky Rod, Luke Rockhold, William Tackett, Mason Fowler, and Roberto Jimenez. And since then, there have been the additions of João Gabriel Roca, Victor Hugo, and Owen Livesey.
Yeah.
Victor Hugo's he's a big one. Big loot.
Gabriel Hosha as well.
Gabriel Hosha.
Each guy, those are the guys, like, are going to be significantly bigger than, like, anyone else that comes in, unless, like, Boucher or someone comes in as well.
And my point on Victor was, actually, like, is there anyone else credentials that Victor's credentials are? Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he'd have been one of the favourites for whatever competition he went into. So I think he's a great signing.
Yeah.
While we're here, just to flag up a couple of other events that happened that we've not dwelled too much on, but we will get into. There was the EBI Absolutes, won by Ryan Aiken, and we're going to do a rundown of all the ADCC competitors, and he's now in the ADCC. So yes, so we'll be talking about his run and how it happened on that show. And then, just while we're here, one guy who's not in 66 at ADCC, but who you would very much like to see in that division is
Mikey Musameki.
Mikey Musameki, who just had a very impressive win over Gabriel Souza in that division. So let's just quickly note that match while we're here.
Yeah, so he beat Gabriel Souza with a calf slicer, avenging his loss a few years back at the who's number 1 said of the Hula tournament. And I think that adds to the fact, I think everyone would have liked to see Mikey in the 66 division anyway. He was supposed to be in the last World Championships. I think he got ill beforehand. Everyone wants to see him in that division, but beating the guy that got a silver last time with a submission as well, that very much adds to that kind of hype that we'd like to see Mikey in that division. There's some speculation of why he isn't going to be in that. So that isn't looking likely, especially with the division being filled out, but I think that is a shame. I would like to see him. I'm glad, to be fair, that he got a really good opponent at 1, rather than getting some of these like MMA guys that kind of the Gordon situation. I don't really see some of those matches being super competitive, but getting someone of Gabriel Souza's level, I'm quite happy to see.
I believe his next opponent on 1 is an MMA guy.
Cade.
Yeah,
no, that's another great match as well. And that when I talk about that tournament that Gabriel Souza beat Mikey at, like the hype going into that was Mikey was actually, from most people's perspective, favourite to win that. He kind of just switched over to Nogi. There was a lot of hype behind it. Everyone was excited to see him versus Cade, and that was kind of like the expected final. And then Gabriel ruined that for Ezzo and by passing Mikey's guard and submitted him. So we didn't get to see that, but no, that would be cool to see.
Not that you're better about that win for Gabriel at all. Oh, no. You ruined that for later.
It was like Walkman ruining the Kynan versus Gordon, just ruined the party by sending a bunch of giant guys.
So Cade won his first MMA match on the same one event, and Cade and Mikey are scheduled down the line. I believe it's around about September, but And that's just off the top of my head. And that'll be a super exciting match. Anyway, that's a chat about Gordon's comeback and some of the additions to CJI. We're going to get into the ADCC bracket divisions as they stand on our next podcast. And then, no doubt, there'll be some additions to the Crane Jones Invitational as well. So, we'll be back real soon with another Jiu Jitsu Oracle.